I'm going to start off by asking you if you are either right now or planning this year to write a global grant. And if you are, this Rotary year, I mean, this next Rotary year, if you are, would you just put your club and your country that you'd be doing it with and your focus area in the chat? So we have some kind of an idea about who's thinking what. And if you're not planning to, that's fine too. But if you are, you could just start doing that now if you wanted.
So you're talking about upcoming ones, not ones already in process.
Yeah, I know all about yours, Mike.
Well, I understand. I just
No problem.
didn't want to fail the class.
Yeah.
Yes, and ours.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones where you already have a number, a grant number, and you've put, something in on that grant number that has to do with your club, then I should be able to see it already. Well, I think we should reward all the people who came on time and get started. Is that okay with you, Scott?
That's okay with me. I will go ahead. I think I just made you co-host a minute ago. And I will let Kathy, fellow Ballard Rotarian, take it away with a great presentation tonight. So buckle up, get your seatbelts on, and get ready for the show.
Okay, so Scott is planning to mute everybody except me, hopefully. And there are a couple of stops that I have to just check in and see if you have any questions. So you could put your questions into chat and Scott will be able to monitor those. And when you see a picture that doesn't seem to fit in, then that's the time to ask questions. So I've got some Africa animal pictures laced through this for stops, eye rest, think about it, any questions you have. So we'll have some time for questions as we go along. Okay, let me find this on my screen, which is over here. And from home. Yes, okay. You all are seeing it, I hope. Okay, so thank you to Scott Strong for doing all the Thursday lectures for this whole month, including mine. And what we're going to do is go step by step through the global grant application. And then just to help you if you're about to write a global grant or if you're in the middle of writing a global grant, and just share the wisdom that we've gotten from the committee of reviewing all the global grants so that we might have some hints for you about what they're asking and how to most effectively get through this. Yeah. So the vision of Rotary International, we always like to start with this. And in terms of global grants, as you're reading through, create a lasting change. So the biggest focus overall on the grants, the global grants and the district grants, but especially the global grants, is sustainability. That whatever change you're making, you want it to last. And that'll be a theme all the way through. And they're very serious about that. Okay, so I've already asked you to do this for newcomers. Just if you're thinking about a grant writing in the next Rotary year, or you're already started writing, then just put these things in the chat room with your club, the country you're thinking about, and the focus area you're thinking about, so that on the committee we can get an idea of how many people are thinking about what. And then we'll start. Okay, so the first thing is before you want to do any kind of grant that has district matching funds, so this would be a district grant or one of the emergency grants or a global grant, you have to have an MOU with the district, which is signed once a year. And I'll show you where to get that. And it's between the club and the district. And basically, to sum it up really quickly, it's like you're going to do this grant, you're responsible for the money, the district isn't, you are as a club. And then 2 club members have to attend the 2 different lectures. One is on district grants and one is on global grants. So a total of 2 members, a total of 2 lectures, and you can listen to the recorded ones since those are already done now, so that 2 members of the club have some idea about all the rules with the grants. Okay, so this is your go-to website. Jeff, head of the foundation, Jeff Brennan, has set up this particular website, and it's 5030grants.com. And you'll hear me referring to this quite a lot. He's done a good job of putting the essential stuff there. So you're going to go, there's all the things you need for district grants, all the forms, all the information, global grants, express grants, Rotary grants, emergency grants, and everything else. So this is a place you want to start. And on this site is the MOU for the district. So you can have it there. You can have it ready for your president to sign on July 2. He's too inundated with too many emails. July 1, July 2, have him sign it. It says on the bottom to send it to Son Michael Pham, and that his address is there and everything. It's just a matter of signing off on that. Then you're qualified for doing these grants. And the fact you want to report the 2 people who have gone to trainings. Okay, so on this site, in the global grant section, you've got your policies and your guides and your community assessment tools. The guides have in there what you can do and what you can't do. And so I think one thing we see most frequently is people want to build a school or build a classroom, a separate classroom, or build a clinic or something like that. But these grants don't cover that. And then the other thing is for scholarships, these scholarships are graduate or technical scholarships. If you're going to do a global grant for a scholarship, it's not going to be for elementary school, middle school, upper school. It would be for somebody to become a water engineer, for instance, or it could be graduate level degrees to be specialized in one of those focus areas. So just remember, it's not really scholarships except for this particular kind, and no buildings. The biggest building you can build is a latrine overall. We're going to talk about the community assessment tool. There's a tool which tells you how to do an acceptable community assessment, and then the results is where you put the results of your assessment and you attach that to your global grant. That has to be done before you do the global grant. It goes in with the application. And then this one also tells you how you can measure and so on. All these are really important. And then this one I think is very useful, having a global grant template in Word, because for some reason that's a mystery to me. Trying to download the grant application when you filled it out and you want to share it like with other people who are supporting you, for instance, it's frequently hard to download it and send it. But if you put it in Word and you get it all done, and then you just clip and paste it over, then you're much more flexible in terms of trying to be able, that's optional, but it's useful. And as I said, the MOU with the district is there. So there's more there too, but these are the essentials. You got to read these. Okay, so now this is what you've been waiting for. We're going to go through step by step how to do this global grant. So you will go to Rotary.org or My Rotary, and then you're going to sign in. And then you'll go to Rotary Foundation and hover. And then that will give you a menu on the left side as you're looking at the slides, and you're going to want to hover on Apply for Grants. And then you're going to want to click on Global Grants or Grant Center. And that gives you a page of all the hot links for all the information you could possibly use. and a link at the very bottom, Start My Grant. And you'll get this page when you get to the Start My Grant one. And so you will fill it out with your name, your club, and then the host is the country in which you're doing it, the country that is hosting the project. It should be as near as possible to where the project takes place, because they're going to be there. They need to be boots on the ground supervising and doing whatever is involved with probably a nonprofit. So we are the international and they are the host. That gets mixed up a lot. You'll put the name of the project there. And then once you put those two people in, you and the host leads, you'll get a grant number. And then you can just always refer to that grant number. And then the other thing that is new this past year is it used to be they would just list all these hot links right down here, nice and convenient, but now they've hidden it. So right here, if you click on that, you can get a list of all the hot links. So if you're in the middle of something and you want to see what the metrics are for your education grant or something like that, then just click up here and it'll come down and then you'll find it. Okay, and then conflict of interest, you're going to put who's on the committee. You need 2 more people, yourself and 2 more people on the international committee, 2 more people on the host committee in the country where you're working. And a conflict of interest is if the person on your committee is involved with the, let's say, the nonprofit or anybody doing services for the grant. Because the Rotary clubs, international and host, are supervising. And so if you had the ED of the nonprofit on your committee, which might seem logical because they know most about it, then they're going to be sort of supervising themselves. So it doesn't work. So they can be in your club, but they're not on the committee. So the people on the committee are not connected with the people getting the money or providing the services. Okay, so the first thing is a community assessment has to be done in advance of applying for the grant. Usually a nonprofit, if you're working with a nonprofit, will have already completed that because that's part of their mission to know what the needs are and so on. But it does involve the community, and the community assessment tool has, the different kinds of things you can have: interviewing, focus groups, mapping, all these different kinds of ways. It's actually a very good manual for how to do any kind of community assessment here, there, or anywhere. If it hasn't been done and there's going to be an expense to doing it, you could do that in district grant. And district grants, you only get 1 per club per year. So the club has to decide that's what they want to spend their money on. But you can do it in a district grant, but it has to be done by either the Rotary Club, or you've been there and gone with the Rotary Club, or the nonprofit or the government organization, whoever you're working with. Okay. And now the next step is the name of your project. That's useful. And again, we've clicked on those little 3 lines that says resources up there. And then the community assessment link is right there as well. The community assessment link is right there. You're going to be doing a humanitarian project. Occasionally we do vocational training, or I already talked about the graduate level scholarships, but almost all the grants that we're doing in this district are humanitarian grants. And then you're going to add the rest of your committee here. And then tell us a little about your project. So you don't need to do the whole thing here, because later on it's going to be split out with all these questions about the different parts of your project. But this is really what I would say is sort of an extended elevator speech. So you're going to say, what is the problem? What's the gap? What's the objective of the problem of the project, and who's going to benefit? And you might want to throw in that how that was decided, that the community came to the NGO, the community came to the Rotary Club, the community somehow achieved notice of the health department or something like that. to really prioritize that this is what they wanted. So it can be brief. It's sort of your hook. You want them to, your reviewers at the Rotary Foundation, to say, wow, this looks interesting. This looks impactful. And then, you know, just get them interested in your project like you would with a sort of long elevator speech. Okay, and then you know that there are now 7 focus areas. You can use 1, that's the simplest, or you can have 2 if they combine and make sense to interlock in the same program. So for instance, you could put a sanitation station, toilets and so on a school, and then say, okay, now more girls are going to come, so I also want to buff up the school system with either books or computers or something like that, and it all interlocks. It's all one program, one project, 2 different focus areas. But one focus area is definitely easier. And for each of the focus areas that you sign up for, there's going to be metrics that you're going to have to decide how you're going to measure, and then how are you going to show success, and so on and so forth. So it is more complicated to do too. Now you only see 6 here, but you probably all know that there's also going to be an environmental one after July 1st, but I can't put it there because it's not there yet. There is a whole talk on environmental and what it's going to be and what it is. And I think it's already happened. I'm not sure. But if so, you can hear the recording to get details on that. And so there's also this area of focus policy, and that one actually already does have a lot of the standards for the environmental one in it. And so you can look up that. And again, it's on your hot links after you've clicked up here. Okay, and then once you've signed up now, just for just random, I've decided that this is going to be an education focus. And so it has these 4 criteria for which one you're going to do. You can do, again, the graduate scholarships are sort of separate, but working to reduce gender disparity, for instance, or adult literacy or children literacy. So which are you going to focus on? And then there's an other, so you could have your own standards too. But whatever your objectives are, they're here. And then you're going to add measures, and they'll tell you what measures, but you can also have other. So you can add that, and I'll show you that on the next page. I can find it. There we go. All right. So when you click on add a measure, you're going to have a selection menu, and that's this selection for education. And then of course there's the other, and then you're going to have which collection method are you going to use? And there's a drop down here. And then how often are you going to use that measure to measure? And how many beneficiaries is it going to affect? So for each measure, you get to do all those things. And then when you look at the focus area manual, then it's going to tell you what it does not fund. So this is some of the things it does not fund for the education focus area. And most of these are because they're not sustainable. In other words, you're not going to provide salaries and tuition or those kinds of things because then once your grant is over, it's not there anymore. So they want really for this to be sustainable. But for each focus area in that focus area manual, they will have the areas of focus policy statement. And that's again on those hot links that I showed you on the right. And they'll show you what you can do and what you can't do. Some of these things you can do with a district grant. So you may want to think about that. Okay, so this is IRES number 1. Do you feel like your head is hitting a hard place, or do you feel like this is going well? Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just had, excuse me. Hi, Kathy. My name is Tony. I just had one question. I put it in the chat, but just about the conflicts of interest. You said the ED, for example, in the organization that we're supporting couldn't be on the committee. I'm just trying to get that clarity in my head.
See, the committee is supervising the project, right? So if you have, if the ED of the cooperating organization is on the committee, that person will be supervising her or himself.
Okay, I think I understand. So for example, just using the ED as the reference, the ED cannot be on the committee that's submitted to the grant. Okay,
Right.
great.
But could be in the Rotary, and probably a lot of
Okay,
times it is.
okay, perfect.
And
Thank
that person could also not be on the board of directors?
Right. No.
Can I
Not
ask
on
a
the board of
question?
directors. They can be, again, in the club, but they shouldn't be on the board of directors. They shouldn't be directly involved in what they're supervising, right? It makes sense.
Kathleen, is it okay to just ask a question?
Yes.
Sure. You know, so how there are all those criteria for what your various objectives are and so on. Is there some place to see those before you get into writing the grant?
Yes. It's hot linked, and it's, let's see, I can show you the name of it, Areas of Focus Policy Statements.
And it has the measurements and everything?
Yep. Well, there's another one for measurements.
Oh, of course. Okay, thank you.
So first of all, some of those things are already on the 5030grants.com. And also, if you go to Grant Center, like I showed you in the beginning, the first page you're going to get is a list of all those hot links. So you don't even have to start a grant to get there. So those are all there. They're well delineated.
Thank you.
Good question. Okay, we're done with that. Okay. Now, then this is obvious, just city or town, state, country, that's obvious. But what I wanted to point out is that most global grants usually take a couple years, and that's totally acceptable. So don't short yourself, because things happen and delays happen. And when you finish, you have to have done your final report, all your evaluations. So even though you think you're going to get this done in 9 months, because it's just acquisition and training and blah, 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 give yourself extra time, put another several months there. Nobody's going to complain if you finish early, but they are going to complain if you don't finish when you say you're going to finish. So this page, the most important thing is the length of time. So the start date, you're not going to know. You have to put in something. You put it in about 3 months after you think the grant's going to be submitted, or something like that. But it doesn't really matter unless it's way out. But really, it's the length of time that this is going to take that you want to show. So add how many months you want, plus a few more months to this side. Okay, now we're going to talk about what happens with this marriage of 4 different groups: the community, the nonprofits, the host Rotarians, which are in that country over there, and the international Rotarians, which is you. Okay, so there is an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, that you will make between your club, the international club, and the nonprofit if you're using one, or if you're using a government or whoever is doing the actual implementation, and any other partners who are providing services. Not the things you're going to buy, which you can just show with bids and stuff, but the other people who are going to provide services. So here it is on this hot link right there, Cooperating Organization Memorandum of Understanding. This is not the memorandum of understanding that you're putting in front of your president on July 2nd. That's between the district and you for getting matching funds. This is one that where you and the host club are supervising the nonprofit, usually, that is the contractor. And so they all have to be signing it, and in it is the role of each. And also on this application is the role of each. So again, there's usually a non-governmental organization, which is called the cooperating organization, but maybe the government is involved, and maybe you are equipping a school with a science lab or with computers or with something else. And the government has agreed to provide the teachers, and then you're going to be training the teachers. So you need something from the government, which could be an MOU, or if a government doesn't want to send an MOU, they can do a letter on their letterhead saying, yes, we will provide teachers for the next 5, 10 years, whatever. So it may be that kind of government, it might be a hospital, whoever you're working with. So any organization that's promising to provide services to implement this grant basically needs to be on an MOU. Okay, so here are some things that the cooperating organization, usually the NGO, might be doing. It's a good idea to have a cooperating organization that represents the beneficiary population, ethnically, speaking the same language, obviously, those kinds of things. So usually that's true. The Rotary Club, again, is a contractor. And so these are the different kinds of things that you might have on that MOU and in your application that the cooperating organization might do. These are some of the things that your host club might do. The main thing is pass-through is a dirty word to the Rotary Foundation. So the local host club is not just a pass-through of the money going from them straight to the NGO. They will watch for that and see, does it look like the NGO wrote this as opposed to you or the host club? They need to have some role in supervising and helping with training, helping with bids, helping with providing some of the services, various kinds of things. Frequently, they'll be the ones who are collecting the funds and getting receipts from the nonprofit and paying it out. That's not required, but that's frequent. So that might be one of their roles. Or it might be that the international club is doing that. It just depends. It just depends on your level of comfort with the host club doing that. If they have a lot of experience, it's a good idea, but if they don't, you may not want it that way. It also might depend if there's a lot of things being bought in the United States versus locally, then there's the money exchange thing. So the international club, just like the host club is not a pass-through, the international club has to be more involved than just fundraising. But of course, that's a major thing we do. But here are some options of things that might be happening with the lead club. It could be other things too, but just an idea of the kinds of things where you really are involved. Okay, then there's a space for volunteer travelers. So just to be clear, this is very specific. This is probably not you. You can have up to 2 travelers that have skills that are specific for this project, but not available locally in the host area. And they can provide that local assistance and expertise that is essential for your grant. And the local Rotary has to write a letter saying, I really need this person to come because I can't get it here and I have to have it. And you attach the CV and a description of why this person is so essential that the grant has to pay for it. And that doesn't necessarily have to come from the United States. It might be coming from another country more nearby or something like that. But that's what volunteer travelers is. Usually, mostly they're blank. Mostly we're not doing that. If you have a whole team, then that's going to be probably something else, like a vocational training kind of thing or something else. So you can just leave that blank if you're not doing that. Okay, any questions so far? Are you tied up in knots or are you going to still with me? Perfectly clear. Okay, good. Okay, now we get to the budget. So the budget, first of all, local currency, you put in whatever the abbreviation is for the local currency. You hit the exchange rate and it'll give you an exchange rate and you put in somewhere the date. So that was the exchange rate on that date and save it. And then you have a drop down, you add budget item and you have a drop down for these different kinds of topics that you might be paying for. Personnel, equipment, and they have a whole list and there's an other. So if you have some other kind of budget item, you can put it in and it will calculate for you what the cost is in US dollars. There is also a place right here where you can put your supporting documents. So you can have sort of a general entry here for equipment. If there's a lot of sort of little things, you know, like all the different pipes and valves and things that are for a water system, for instance, and then you can have it on an Excel spreadsheet or a pro forma from the company that's put in the bid or some kind of thing like that. If you're doing a water project, you could have your hydrology studies in there. Anything that you want for supporting documents, this is one place you can put them in. Your community assessment can go there. There is also another line item further down that just says supporting documents, and you can put them in there too. But you might have more details of the budget and all that kind of stuff. So just to notice that that's there, and then now they have a line item later on too. Okay, so you probably have heard that the new matching scheme has been cut back on the part of the Rotary Foundation because they've been getting so many global grants that they are basically running out of money in the World Fund. So that goes two ways. One is they're getting more grants, and two, this money comes from the money that was donated by the district 3 years ago, and that was decreased. And so there's less money coming in and more money being requested. So in trying to make sure everybody can get their grants, they used to have a 1-to-1 match. Now they've cut back to an 80% match. So if you have 50/30 club money of 20,000, the district will match you with these limitations here. And then they will match 80% of that. So this will turn into a $56,000 grant. So each club can put in no more than 15,000, and the total project for matching, you can put in as much as you want, but for matching, and the project will match up to 22,000. So we in the district also want to make sure that we can fund as many global grants as possible. And so that's why we have these limits, and we have to keep to them. That's fair for everyone. Okay, then where's that money coming from? So you'll be entering that, add a funding source. So it'll give you that it's cash from the club or cash from the district, and it'll or some other kind of cash source. And then you put in how much and which club, and it gets lined up here. Now, there's also this support total thing over here that's 5% more. You do not have to do this. So basically, this is if you have the money that's coming in from the clubs and you want it sent directly to to the Rotary Foundation for them to collect it instead of you collecting it in your club foundation, then they're going to charge 5% for that. And only a few clubs, I only know of one club actually, who actually likes to do this, because then the club gets Paul Harris points. But then you also have to raise this extra 5%, or else the club that's doing the cash has to do this. So my advice to you is, unless you want to do it that way, just ignore this stuff. Okay, it's only here. The district designated fund, so you'll be putting that in however much you have to match, but it should not be more than 22,000. Do not put it in higher than 22,000, or we won't be able to authorize it, and you won't be able to get it. Then the computer adds up how much the World Fund will give you. Whoops, sorry. I'm sorry. The computer adds up how much the World Fund will give you. And so this is now, it will give you that 1-to-1 match. If you have your grant accepted by July 1st, not submitted, but submitted and accepted by July 1st, they still are giving a 1-to-1 match. But after that, it's going to be the 80% that I showed you on that previous slide. Okay, are you asleep or are you ready to go? Any questions?
Yeah, just one question. So, so when I've written grants before, usually there's a component for the counterpart, labor or any costs that aren't specifically paid for with cash, but by the community or by the partner. So we discount that, huh? That's not included in this format. Is that right, Kathy?
Yeah, Kathleen. So,
Oh, Kathleen, I'm sorry.
yeah, in-kind labor, which is a good thing because you want the community to be putting something in. You have in your narrative, but you don't have it on the money sheet because there's no money. And if you have let's say a foundation that's not attached to Rotary in any way, or some other group that's donating, you put that in the narration that, you know, you have support from these other areas, but you don't put that there either in the budget, because this is just for the Rotary money.
Great.
But definitely get the kudos, you know, that there's all these other people supporting you and how important that is and how much the community is putting in and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Kathleen, this is Howard. I had a question on a couple of slides back.
Okay.
It was the one that you showed the 20, just go back a little bit. That one.
Yeah.
So you showed the 50-30 clubs put in 20,000. The district matches 20,000 and the foundation matches 16,000, which is 80%.
Yeah.
Then on the bottom, you talk about project year 22 and club project 15.
Oh, okay.
Kind of, that gets a little confusing.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say one club puts in 15 and another club puts in 5. Then that would be 20,000. But one club can't put in more than 15. And so we just have these limits so that it promotes partnership, and we don't want it promotes partnership and sharing the load with the club project, and then you can have 30,000 that you've raised from other clubs, but you're not going to be able to have us match more than 22,000. Does that answer your question, Howard?
It does. Thank you very much.
Okay, sure. Make sure you're on mute if you're not asking a question, please.
So Kathleen, this is Mike.
Hi, Mike.
So yeah, Howard asked my first question. So thank you, Howard. That took care of that, which I already knew, but I was wanting to make sure it got clarified. But the second question is, in the case of the grant that we've submitted, the local NGO is going to do some training to make sure that the filter systems we're providing are effectively used. Mm-hmm. They will have to be paid for that training. Mm-hmm. Would it make sense for us to forward that money to the host club and then have them pay the NGO, or should we pay the NGO directly? Or does it matter?
That's a very good question, and I'll go back and get to the basics, which is there is one bank account, and that's right. A unique bank account for this grant. That bank account has the grant number, the grant name, and once you get approved, they will tell you that they want to see that bank account. So you fill up that bank account with all the contributions, and then they will have approved that bank account, and that bank account can sit with the host club, or it can sit with the international club, but not both. So
yeah, okay, so right now that account sits with us.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure we maximize the involvement of the host club in the process, but I don't want to do it arbitrarily.
Right. So you have the money, and then let me just finish with what I was going to say, which is that once you have all the money in that one bank account, you send that bank account statement to the Rotary Foundation, and then they send the matching funds, both the DDF and the World Fund matching funds. So now you have all the money that you're going to collect in that same bank account, and then you pay it out. Now you're asking if you could pay it out to the host club, and then they would pay it to the NGO. I guess you could. That seems sort of weird since the NGO is going to be sending you the bills and you know, they're buying the, I guess it depends. I don't know if there's anything wrong with giving it to the host club and having them, who's going to buy, in your case, the filters, the water
Well,
filters?
it makes sense for us to buy the filters because they come out of Florida.
Right.
And we were able to get a quote for half the price that we were quoted in Mexico. So it makes zero sense to buy them in
Yeah.
Mexico when we can buy them here. But
Okay.
I'm just thinking from the standpoint of maximizing the host club's involvement in the process.
Kathleen,
Yeah.
this is Larry Logue. I have a suggestion for Mike. You could have a two-stage approval process where you ask the host club to inspect the work and give you authorization or approval for you then to write the check. Then you know they're involved, but you control the funds. We've done that on our projects.
I like that. That's a great answer. Thank you,
I
Larry.
think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Okay, now we're getting to the sustainability thing. So you would think in a normal grant application that once you've put in the funding and you've put in the expenses and all that stuff, you're done. But in actual case, the whole meat of your grant is going to be now. So this is after the budget and all those sort of things that we took care of as the sustainability part. So there are all these questions right here, just like I've got them. And these here, and you want to split up your whole discussion, you know, your longer elevator speech or beyond the elevator speech into answering these exact questions. And basically they want evidence that the local beneficiary community has been involved in designing what they want, because that's the only way it's going to be sustainable. So in addition, you've got a lot of this stuff written already in your community assessment, and some of it may be sort of clip and paste, or you might just sort of be restating it. But how did the community define the problem? How did they prioritize that this is the biggest thing that they need? What are they going to be doing to contribute? They could be contributing a small amount of money. They could be contributing labor. So how are they involved in the solutions? And then there is a manual on 6 steps to sustainability, which sort of gives you a guideline of how to answer these. And that again, of course, is on those hot links. But this is really the meat of the whole grant in terms of the narrative. And this you want to have nicely detailed. Otherwise, when you send it in, TRF is going to be coming back to you and say, well, we want to know more about this. We want to know more about this. We want to know more about this. So this is where a lot of your detail comes. And look at the question and answer the question. You have to split up what could be one big narrative among these questions. Okay, now just about every single grant involves some kind of training and or education. So training is like training the teachers to teach hygiene in the schools, or training the water committee to be able to test the water and to fix the pump or whatever it is that you put in there. So there's training, and then there is education. So hygiene education in a water grant for the population, whether it's the school children or whether it's the parents or the community, or in any of these focus areas. In order to achieve sustainability, you have education. So that's going to be a line item almost always. And of course, there's a form for that. And of course, it's on that right-sided hot link that you're going to get with those 3 little lines up there. And the training form is very specific. So if there's already a manual written, you can include that. But this one has how many teachers, how many classes, how many hours, how much are they getting paid per hour, and what is their curriculum, basically. So don't skip over this form. You're going to need that. So this is, please describe the training, community outreach, or education programs this program will include. You're going to need that form there, which again is hot linked. Okay, and then these are the last questions. How is it going to be maintained after the grant is finished? Is it culturally appropriate, whatever you're buying? And the answer is always yes. So after that, you have to explain why, but definitely yes. The equipment has to be owned by the beneficiaries in almost all cases, so you can describe that, how they're maintaining it. And then, have you found a local funding source to sustain the project for the long term? So maybe the parents committee of the school is going to put in a little bit to keep the electricity going, to keep the computers going and being fixed, or something like that. Or who's going to pay the water committee to be doing their thing? What is the sustainability project going to be? So that's really a very important question. They're not going to pass anything that doesn't have a good answer to that. And then if you actually have a program that's going to generate income, then of course you can get credit for that. That's usually less usual. Okay, so that is the whole grant. You don't submit it. There's a place where you can hit authorize, and then that locks it. So the reason it locks it is because when you hit authorize, you're putting your signature on it, on the whole thing. And you don't want anybody going in and editing over your signature on any kind of a contract, right? So once it's locked, it's hard to get it unlocked. It can happen, but you have to sort of go back and then unlock it and then get it authorized again. So just don't even hit that until you're done. The host club and you ought to agree that you like the way it is. You have your funding, it's all in there. It has to match to the cent with the income and the outgo, the funding and the budget have to match to the cent, because it's a computer thing that matches it up. And if it's not the same number, even if it's a penny off, it's not gonna work. And then most importantly to the grants committee is send it to us if you want any kind of matching funds, because then we will review it. And hopefully to your advantage, we'll give you some ideas about what might be missing or what could be said a little better, or some kind of advice from our experience. All the people on the grants committee have written global grants. But more importantly too, for you, is that we can earmark the money that you're asking for matching funds. So if we haven't seen the grant at the time you authorize it, we're not going to authorize it, meaning Jeff, the foundation head, and the district governor have to authorize it. And we're not going to authorize it if we haven't reviewed it. So the matching funds. So you definitely want to send it to me, and I'll send it out to my committee. We can usually turn it around within a week. And also, if you want advice earlier than that, you can also talk to us anytime. You can pass it by us on, on a phone call, or you can send what you've got. But we need that final review before you submit it. And then you're done. So then you can authorize it. That will lock it and submit it. And then you can breathe. I think some of you have heard me say this. You can breathe and relax and vacation for 2 weeks. You get your life back. And then maybe even more than 2 weeks nowadays, because TRF seems to be way behind. They will send you feedback. And they'll say, we want to see if you really qualify for this, which might feel sort of like a punch in the gut, because you're not used to putting in something that doesn't qualify. But then they'll have a bunch of questions, and the faster you turn that around and answer them, the faster that they will approve it. They want to approve these grants. So just keep in mind when you're getting totally annoyed at the questions, that in the end, they will say yes, most times, unless it just doesn't fit at all and you have to rearrange it a lot. So that's all I can say about that. And we're here to help. This is the Global Grant Committee, and I'm open for any questions you have right now.
Kathy, I just wanted to ask, in the budget, if you have a contingency provision in the budget and if it's not fully spent, I'm working on a water project. So if there is a portion of the contingency that is not spent, can you move, can you apply, like give that to the water commission or something for the maintenance of the project at the end of the project? Will that work? Or
So the
what?
road,
Or I guess the other question is what happens to the contingency if it's not spent?
right. So understand that the Rotary Foundation doesn't want the money back. So if you have a contingency and it's not spent, and you can have like up to 15% contingency, as long as you justify what it is. And a lot of times it could be because there's variation in the exchange rate and those kinds of things. Then if it's not spent, and I think if it's a very small amount, they'll just say, give it to them or spend it anyway. But I think what you would do, and this is true of any of the line items in your budget, if you're going to move something from one to another, like maybe you didn't spend as much on equipment, but you want to spend more on teacher training. So if you're excuse me, moving from one bucket to another, you just need to call up your country chair and talk to them and say, I'd like to move it from one bucket to another. For instance, there was a really nice global grant in Eswatini, which is the former Swaziland, with Days for Girls making menstrual pads that you can wash, and they would set up a sewing center and an entrepreneurial kind of thing and getting out to the schools and teaching about it and all that kind of stuff. And then COVID came and the schools were closed. So they couldn't do it. So they called up and said, well, we still want to have our sewing center. We still want to teach them these skills. So could we be making masks? And they said, yes. So I think it's just a matter of communication with your country chair. So on the country chair situation, there is a country chair for all the areas in the world that have clubs. And on that initial list of all the hot links, when you go to Grant Center, that page you have that has all the links at the bottom, the very last item is country chairs. So if you want to know who your country chair is, you click on that, find your country, and that person's phone number and name is there. And it's also nice to talk to the country chair about whether the particular host club that you're working with has any other kinds of reports not due or any reasons why they're not qualified, because you know your club is qualified, but you don't know if their club is qualified. And they may have had some report that's missing on some other grant that's got nothing to do with you or District 5030 or whatever, and not even maybe know it. That's happened to me one time. And so the country chair is kind of a good contact. You can even pass by what you're doing and they'll say, oh, I don't like that kind of grant. I like this, you know, maybe shape it this way more. So getting to know your country chair is a good idea. But yes, so if you want to switch from one bucket to another on your budget line, call them up and say, I didn't use all this contingency, but I really want to put some more money into this training because, you know, I need to teach more people or whatever. And they'll probably be very flexible about it.
Country chair that you're talking about is the foundation chair?
There's a country chair or a country desk for all of the different countries. Some desks have 2 or 3 countries under them, but they're all in Evanston, Illinois. I mean, right now they might be remote all over the country, but yeah.
And where do you find that information? I'm sorry.
So it's one of those hot links when you go to Grant Center. And that first page before you get to apply for a grant, which is at the bottom of that list, at the very bottom, right under apply for the grant, is the country chairs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Kathleen,
Yeah.
This is a good segue to my question because I didn't really interact with the country chair in our case the first time around until it was an unpleasant interaction. But does it make sense, like you just said, to interact with the country chair while you're in the process of writing your global grant? But also, I have found there is a group of people, I think they're called cadre, that are experts under the RI umbrella for different types of projects. How do we access those people?
So I'm going to let Larry answer that.
Okay, Mike. Yes, there is a list of them, and I will be sending that out to all of the ISC chairs. In the session I had last week, we talked about that. And there are lists of people. There is a contact point, high-level contact point for us in North America, and then there are lists of the cadres for each of the various areas of focus. But there's a list I'll be sending out with names and phone numbers or email addresses.
Yeah, I found the one that I worked with to be very helpful, you know, in the second iteration of our global grant. And I just wanted to make sure other people were aware that that actually exists.
Yeah, the cadre of technical advisors, there's about 700 members worldwide, and they are experts either in finance or each of the areas of focus or in grant writing. And they are changing their mode of operation from being auditors to being helpers. And they really do want to help, and they will actively work with you if you ask them. And if you have any questions, you can't find somebody, let me know and I'll go search out the right person.
And you're sending that out to those of us who are on this particular
The
call?
international chairs.
I will send it out to the country ISC chairs and those people who are on my normal distribution list. And Sally, I think you're on that list.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, anytime you can call up or, you know, email one of us too, if you want to start there. But we can refer you to the cadre when it gets tough.
Cadre, is this training going to be available on the district site or on YouTube?
So I think the recording is on the Rotary site on YouTube. Presumably, they should be sending this out to everybody where it is, how to get to that link.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the two qualifying lectures, the one on global grants and the one that I did, well, the one I did on global grants and the one Kathy did on district grants, those are going to be on the 501, the 5030 grants.com site too. We have last year's up there now, but Jeff's going to put the new ones up when we have them. So Scott, do you see any other questions?
So I have a question. So when we go to the RI International website in order to fill up the global grant form,
Yeah.
Once we have filled it up, you said do not authorize it yet.
Mhm.
How do we circle back so we can send it to your committee in the district for review?
Yeah. So
How do we do that?
yeah, one of the hot links says that you can download it to a PDF.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. So if you have trouble, just let us know. But on my Mac, I can download it to a PDF and then open it in preview and then save it. And I'm not sure how you do it with a PC.
And when we are filling it up, the actual form, if we stumble or something happens and we cannot do certain things, can we save it and then get back to it again at some other time?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
So we don't have to do it like in one sitting and.
Oh my God.
try
No.
to-
No. You can,
I haven't, you know, my club has done a lot of international projects, but I haven't done one personally. So
yeah.
that's
Well,
why I'm asking.
that's great.
I'm
That's
asking
great.
a stupid question. So
No, it's a good question, but yes, no, every single page has save and exit or save and continue. And it'll
Okay.
save, yes, it'll definitely save it. I think if you go more than like 2 years or something, they'll take it off, but you can leave
Oh,
it
no.
there.
And then regarding the club assessment, I know that there is a form. We have an official form, but can we use a free form if the free form will answer all the questions in the official form rather than? Or do we have to make it fit into the form?
I would fit it into the form.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's why they have the form. When they have a form, they want you to use it.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's hot linked. And that, yeah, and that's also, I think, on the 5030grants.com.
Okay.
So kind of piggybacking on Ruben, Kathleen, I was trying to practice along with you on my Mac.
Yeah.
And I tried to go to the next page, but I guess what I needed to do was, even though I wasn't filling anything in, I was pretending, I needed to hit save and continue in order to go to another page. So I got kind of hung up, like, I can't go on. Because I wasn't filling the whole thing page out. I was following.
Yeah. Save and continue or save and exit.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm very new at this and a little bit overwhelmed today. But I'm working with Malaria Partners International, and I see that Jim Moore is one of the people, so perhaps he can be a mentor to
Jim
me.
Moore is a fantastic mentor. He used to be head of this committee.
Yeah,
Okay.
and if you start doing it, it's kind of scary, but when you start doing it, it's easy. Yeah, it's fun. It's gonna take a while, but as soon as you start doing it, my question actually, Kathleen, is you've mentioned about the account that needs to be opened so that they can deposit the monies in.
Yeah.
The host club, did they have to have a separate account too?
No, only one account.
Only one account?
Either you have it or they have it. One account.
Okay.
And you'll describe that in your grant.
Yeah. Okay.
The host role and the host club role and the international club role, whether you're going to be managing the money or they're going to be managing the money. One account.
One account. Okay, good. Thank you.
Kathleen, a question to the sustainability part.
Yeah.
We were contemplating to do a grant around driving PR for a hackathon, which awards to improve environmental issues. So just for the PR and driving, getting more participants into the hackathon, as there is no direct physical part which stays, is that something which would even be covered in the global grant?
Okay, I'm not really.
So there's a tournament to get the best idea how to improve the environment worldwide from Norway. So we were thinking of trying to collect money to drive more awareness so that more people participate with this event.
For a tournament.
For that hackathon, so it's a programming tournament.
Yeah.
And it's already clear that the best one will get money to fulfill their idea from it. But we wanted to drive more participants to it. So the question is, can that be written in a global grant, or because of the sustainability structure, or would that not?
It doesn't sound to me like it, but if you go to the areas of focus manual, I think they do have listed the things that they will cover. Usually they don't cover events and things like that. So that, I'm not going to say no, but I'm going to say you'll have to look at the manual.
And where would I find that manual for environment?
I think that that they do have that in the focus manual. That the manual that has the different focus groups in it and the discussion of the focus groups. I think they have added that for the environment. So I would go to the Grant Center, and then if it's not obvious, I think there's a search thing, a little magnifying glass, and write in environment focus group or something like that, or environment, and see if it'll come up with it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have
Thank
to
you very much.
and also there was a talk on the environment and what it's going to cover. So I'm not sure if that's happened yet. I think it has. So there'll be a recording.
And Kathleen, this is Maria Noreña, following up on Hagen, because we are working together on this possible grant application.
Yeah.
It is a Hack for Earth Foundation that is creating this worldwide hackathon. And it's in partnership with the United Nations to develop solutions matching the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is very aligned with what Rotary is trying to do. We are trying to figure out not only to engage people, as Hagen was saying correctly, but we are wanting also to understand if we need to partner with other clubs mandatorily, or if it's just our district partnering with that foundation to enable Rotary to like a platform for any Rotarian to participate.
Okay, so a global grant specifically has to have a host club in another country. There are 2 countries involved with a global grant. If you did this as a district grant, I don't know what your budget is. Do you have a ballpark budget?
No, we don't. We are just trying to understand, to figure out how we need to apply for this.
Right. Okay, so you might be able to do it with a district grant, in which case it would be under $30,000.
Okay.
But
then it will have to be, we will have to wait to see if our clubs decide that this is the unique district grant that they are going to fund.
Yeah, I don't know.
And that makes it
is because the district grants are due September 15th, and you find out in October if you got it or not, and then it pays out usually sort of towards the end of November. So when is the hackathon?
Right, so that's the other question. The hackathons just kicked off this week, and it goes through, because it has several stages, it goes through next year. So because it is like right now they're doing like filtering ideas, then they will cluster the ideas to match the Sustainable Development Goals, and then they will start the competition of selecting the winning ideas, developing those into actual solutions, and the final winners will be at the Expo 2022 in Dubai.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure. I would look at the criteria for the environmental group. I don't know, Larry, do you have any comment on that if you're there?
What I would suggest they do is, one of the presenters in my session I had last week, his name is Jay Collingham. He is the new foundation head of the environmental area of focus. He would at least be able to point you to the right people in his own organization that would be able to help you answer that. So Hagen and Maria, if you'll let me know, I'll give you his email and contact information.
Thank you.
Thank
That
you,
would
Larry.
really help. Yeah.
Okay, if there's no more.
Kathleen, just one comment for a couple of people that were asking about the process of filling out these steps in the global grant. Until you actually lock your global grant, you can go back to any category, open it and edit it, and then save and close it again.
Yep.
So just because you've saved and closed it once doesn't mean you can still go back and edit it until you have locked your grant.
That's a very good point. Yeah, it's all open until you do that.
Are there many of the global grants submitted by clubs that have already done a district grant? In other words, is that kind of a step toward a global grant, or do you just go full blown into the global grant?
It's really up to you based on your background with the local Rotary and with your comfort with the nonprofit and your budget. So doing a district grant first, again, you're limited to one per club, so your club has to be behind it, but makes a lot of sense. because it's you can test out your nonprofit, you can test out your host club, and then when you're applying for the global grant, you've got all that experience already, and you've probably already done the community assessment, so you're really a significant amount of the way there. And you know, that it's a really good plan. You don't have to do it that way, but certainly it can. And also you get the ball rolling, you get it started.
Thank you.
And Kathleen, one more comment on the process also. So in the process, especially sustainability, you can actually give edit rights to the one host club member or couple of them who are heavily involved and they know what they are doing. And because sometimes you have to find somebody in the club, in the host club, who will answer your question quickly. They will get you the paperwork, the invoice quickly. So you can give them edits right, and they can edit or, you know, fill in the blanks or help you fill the application. So that's also possible.
It's not only possible, it's advisable, because they're going to have to sign off it just like you. So if you sit down and write that whole thing up, and then you pass it by the committee, and then you lock it up, and then they read it and they say, oh, I didn't agree to this, or I don't like it this way, I want it that way, then they're going to unlock it. And we've had that happen several times this year. And then you're back, and then they're working on it. So yes, the host club has access to it and you have access to it. And you can both be writing it together or changing it back and forth, hopefully communicating. And yes, you made a very important point, which I made when I talked about the Global Grants 101, is that you absolutely have to have a champion in that club, in that host club, that you can communicate with, whichever platform they want to communicate with, and you can communicate with. Establish that, is it going to be phone? Is it going to be WhatsApp? Is it going to be Zoom? Is it going to be whatever? So that they need to be able to answer you, and you need to be able to contact them. You have to have a good relationship with your other lead or some other person in the club. And then they and you have to have that champion in the community and in the NGO. So 4 champions, you and 3 others. And if you don't have people who are passionate and champion their cause, that's your cause and their cause, it's going to be difficult going. Okay, I think one more question because we're running over. I don't know if there's something after me.
No, you're doing great, Kathleen. Yeah, does anyone have another question?
Just a thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, definitely much deserved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathleen.
Great. Okay.
And
Well,
Larry. Thank
helpful.
you, Larry.
Yeah, thank you, Larry is right. And thank you, Scott.
All right, well,
Thank you, Scott.
Larry.
no problem. Well, I will get ready to close out the meeting then. I hope everyone has a great evening, and thanks again, Kathleen, for dropping so much knowledge tonight.
And if you'll save the chats for me,
Yep.
so I can see what projects are in people's minds. Thanks.
Okay, yep.
All right, great. Good night.
Good night.